Welcome to yet another episode of Living Life Podcast. Okay, this is the second episode of Living Life Podcast. And on this episode today, I will be talking about my treatment. I will be talking about the treatments, everything that happens in regards to treatment from my diagnosis down to the very last stages of my treatment. So, moving forward on this topic, treatment, or on this episode, treatment, I was told initially that I will be having 4 stages of treatment here in Olu, and because they've at the by the second week of my stay in the hospital, they already knew how the thing will go. 4 stages of treatment here in Olu, and then I will be moving for my stem cell transplant. If by then I could get a donor by then, but at least there will be 4 stages of treatment here in Olu. So the first stage of my treatment, I wouldn't say is the most terrible one, even though it's the most heaviest of them all, but I wouldn't say it's the most terrible one, because my third stage treatment happens to be the most scary and probably the most deadliest one, even though the first stage treatment also comes with its own things, which I will be talking about. So basically, during the first stage of my treatment, the treatment started on Tuesday. After I was admitted to the hospital on the Friday evening, the treatment started on Tuesday. On Tuesday evening, and I was taking a chemotherapy for the next 7 days. The chemo was running every day, 24 hours every day for 7 good days. And this was the first stage of the treatment. And this stage, actually, like this was the first process, sorry, not the stage, but the first process of this first stage. And the purpose for this is to kill every cells in my body, the cancer cell, the good cells, whatever cell that existed in my body, to clear it all out, to kill it completely, so the body can start generating new cells and they can see how is the process going. And during these first 7 days, I was feeling absolutely okay. During these first 7 days of 24 hours chemotherapy going through my body, I was feeling quite okay. Yes, the first 2 days wasn't so fine because I had the canal being inserted through my neck over here. And of course, the first 2 days being, it's like a mini surgery. There is a wound over there, and it really hurts, and I can't really sleep, I can't really move, I can't really do. But after these first 2 days, when the pain subsided over there, the first 7 days went by just like that. And after these first 7 days, the process of treatment continues, and the chemo was reduced drastically, and I have only 2 sets of chemos per day. Each one lasts for about 2 to 3 hours. I can't remember correctly now. This happened already in September 2022, so quite a while already. So I was having 2 sessions of chemotherapy, one early in the morning and one later in the evening, of 2 to 3 hours. And after that, we coupled with many other kind of chemotherapy sessions and many other kind of infusions here and there. But going into the second week, because of the effect of the first week chemo that I had, which was the 24-hour, 7 days chemo that I had, I lost everything within me. No kind of cell existed in me anymore. I was losing my hair. I lost every sense in my mouth. My mouth was so sore. My throat was so sore. My chest was so sore that I couldn't eat anything anymore. And this second week, I must say that it felt extremely terrible. It really was unbearable. I couldn't eat anything and I was in agony basically every day. And it's so amazing how how day goes by when we are actually going through pains. Because when I was dealing with these pains that I couldn't eat, I was having infusion of nutrition in my body. I was having infusion of liquids. I was all of my medications. There is nothing I really could swallow. Everything was coming via IVs. All of this made the whole thing so difficult for me. And when I think about it, looking at my journals after the times, this first stage of my treatment, I realized that this painful period lasted only 5 days. And when the day I was reading this journal, I couldn't believe it because I really felt like the days was much, much longer than 5 days because the pains were unbearable. The pains existed with me 24 hours, 7 days. No sort of painkillers were helping. It's very strong painkillers were administered to me. But yes, it was really, really bad. And this was the second week into the treatment, and by the end of that second week and by the beginning of the third week into this treatment, my cells were beginning to improve. My blood cells, my hemoglobin, my platelets, my neutrophils, my thrombocytes, these numbers are beginning to come up. So I begin to start feeling much better again. My throat, my mouth, my chest, my body, things begin to feel quite normal again for me. And I was beginning to get more relaxed with the treatment at this point. There was no excessive pains anywhere during this third week. And I felt really, really good going into that third week during the course of this treatment. However, by the end of the third week into my treatment, and before I say this, what I want to say, in the course of my treatment, I was placed in a private room, not really isolated because family and friends could easily come to visit me in as they just have to be healthy enough to visit me. They cannot really have any kind of a flu symptoms or cough or whatsoever. They just have to be healthy. So I was not really isolated. I was just in this one room and I have only few family members and the nurses and the doctors coming in and out, and every other person's working to make sure that I stay healthy and I stay fine and I stay good during the days. So coming into the end of the third week, during my first stage of treatment, something happened. I started running a very high temperature, a 40-degree temperature on a daily basis. For 2 to 3 days, nothing was helping. They did all kind of infection tests. They did all sorts of things. And also, before this end of the third week into my treatment, they check every now and every of my vitals, including my oxygen circulation. And throughout this period, my oxygen circulation has always been between 99 and 100. It's a feat also that the doctors always say that, wow, this is quite strange that your oxygen circulation is always very, very good, even with this whole treatment. But coming into this end of this third week of my treatment, I was having this high fever and my oxygen circulation level was dropping at a very fast rate. At a point, it was at 90, something that they never saw before. So they have to apply onto me some kind of an oxygen mask so I could have some oxygen flowing in me. And this created a whole lot of fear and a whole lot of scare because from all tests that was carried out, everything looks to be fine. So after 2 days of consistent 40 degrees temperature, the doctor requested that I have a COVID test. And this was not requested for in the beginning, because considering the room in which I was, considering the number of people that come to visit me, considering people that I see what I do, it's almost impossible to actually be COVID positive in that circumstances. So after 2 days, when all tests has been done and all checks has been done and everything continues to comes out clean, but the temperature never goes down, the doctor requested for a COVID test. And so be it. I was COVID positive. Wow. This COVID scenario in the course of chemotherapy treatment, in the course of at the same time when the cells within the body are just coming back up, wasn't the best time of my life at all. The COVID took a whole lot away from me, strength. Like, at some point I felt hopeless, because it got to a point I really felt like the doctors continue to do what they have to do, but with the hope that hopefully this temperature will go down, this COVID will come to an end at some point. But it was a tough time. And 5 days into this period of plus 40 degrees, I remembered vividly, it was a Saturday morning. I was tired. And now I was getting into my 4th week of the treatment, of my first stage treatment. I was tired. I was perplexed. I was broken. I felt that this is just all about it. But all in all, I take some positives out of everything that happens to me. During this COVID, I kept saying that, thank God Almighty that this COVID came not when all the cells in my body were 100% down, but it came just at that time when the cells in my body are beginning, when the hemoglobin, the platelets, the thrombocytes, where the numbers are beginning to rise again. So the body has some substance to actually fight some level of this. It would have been deadly if this COVID was in my first week of the first stage treatment, or if it was in the second week, it would have been very, very deadly. So on this Saturday, about 5 days into my COVID saga, I was crying. I went into the bathroom. I was totally down. I was sad. I felt the world as like the world is crumbling just right in front of me. I was questioning God. And on this note, I want to say that it's important to put our faith also in God. Yes, things happen, and as a Christian that I am, I've come to understand that being a Christian or being a believer doesn't say that I will not go through things. And it doesn't also say that I shouldn't actually complain or ask questions. But through faith, things could work. On this Saturday, after I've cried, after I've complained, asked questions, God, why? Why me? Why this? Why that? Around 11 o'clock, I stopped crying in the morning. I wiped my tears and I went to my bed, and I laid. And I fell into a peaceful sleep. I woke up around 12 o'clock and I felt at ease with myself. The nurse came to administer some of the medications for the day, and they checked my temperature. And behold, for the first time in about 5 days, it was 37.5. I can't explain what happened between the hour of 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. on that Saturday. But after that 12 p.m. on Saturday, I never needed a painkiller anymore to treat high temperature, high fever. No, nothing of that nature. And that the day just gets better and better and better and better. And on the fourth, and by the beginning of the 5th week, I was allowed to go home for the first time since I arrived at the hospital about 5 weeks ago. And this was the first stage of my treatment. I was home for about 10 days, and I returned to the hospital for the second phase, or for the second stage of the treatment. The second stage of the treatment, it's about chemos, 5 days chemo, 5 days of chemotherapy treatments, which come between the early mornings and the evenings. And after the chemo, and because I was feeling really, really good during the second stage, they allowed me to go home again for 7 days while the chemo works and the cells goes down. And immediately the cells were down they were down after a couple of days. In about 7 days, I returned back to the hospital, because at this point now they have to keep an eye on me to make sure that there are no infection and everything is going well. And throughout this period, everything went really, really well. I really didn't have a need for anything extra. Few platelets here and there, few, probably 1 or 2 times of hemoglobin infusion. But the whole time that I was there for 2 weeks until the cells recovered again on its own, it went really, really well. So the second stage of the treatment went really well. And at that point, I already got a great news. A news that made it possible for me to be here sharing my story at this time, in less than 2 years since I was diagnosed of leukemia. By the end of the second stage treatment, they told me that I will be going to the hospital where I will be visiting, the hospital where I will be having my allogeneic stem cell transplant in Helsinki. Because I got one of my nurse calls it a life gift from my elder brother. My elder brother happens to be a good match for me. And so I really don't have to look any further for a donor. So this second stage of my treatment, coupled with this news and everything, put myself, my family into a good place. So instead of having 4 stages of treatment at my home hospital in Oulu, they reduced the stages of treatment to 3, and the 4th one will be the treatment that will be happening for my allogeneic stem cell transplant. And that was a blessing for me. That was something that I know for a certain, yes, the Lord God has perfected a whole lot of things. Many uncertainties happen in the course of this treatment. Many things looks like it's never going to work. Many things looks very scary. There was uncertainty of life. There was uncertainty of how do I move on? How does this happen? But one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, things keep sorting themselves out. With little or no knowledge of my own self, things keep sorting themselves out. And this, for me, was a blessing from God Almighty. I really want to use this treatment episode to encourage as many as are going through any life-threatening diseases, any life-threatening diagnosis at this point. Put your trust in God. Let God be your God. Find a place, find a way to know who this God is according to our faith, according to everybody's individual faith, everybody's level of faith. God will walk with us and things will happen that we, even though we keep saying it, we will be asking, does it really happen this way? God is a powerful God, and He has helped me to live through this. Hey, and mind you, I am not taking anything away from every of my doctors, from every of my nurses, from every of my helpers, down to those that cleaned my room at every stage of my treatment. All of them were a resources to put me where I am today. And I want to thank God for their knowledge, for their wisdom, for everything also that happens, that God has blessed them with, for them to be able to make things work out for me. And I believe that every one of us, if we continue to put our trust in God, God will heal us. The treatment will happen and God will perfectly heal us. So going from my second stage, after my second stage was completed, I was allowed to go home again for another couple of days. This time, actually, quite a short day. I think it was about 5 to 6 days that I was home, and I returned to the hospital to commence to go through my third stage treatment. This third stage treatment was, I always feel like this is the worst treatment, even worse than the first one, for a few reasons. Number one, I already know that I'm going to Helsinki to have my allogenic stem cell transplant. So I asked every time that, why do I need this third stage treatment again? Why do I have to go through all of these chemos and all of these pains that last about a month altogether? Why? That was one. And secondly, my body was getting weaker and weaker at every stage of the treatment. I can feel it within my bones that my body was getting weaker. So I tried everything to ask questions from my doctor that, why do I need this third treatment? Why do I need this third stage of treatment? But they said it's necessary, that it's requested even by the teams of hematologists that will be treating me in Helsinki for my allogenic stem cell transplant. So I went for the third stage treatment. Just like the second stage, the third stage didn't go well at all. From the very first chemo that I had, I was having complications. I was throwing up. And this chemotherapy treatment for this third stage is also just like the second, just as it was in the second stage, whereby it's for 5 days, and it will 5 days in a row, and the first one twice a day and 5 days in a row. The first one is around 4 p.m. in the evening, and the second one that makes a day is around 5 a.m. in the morning. So between, and it lasts, each of these chemos last about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, and that's it. But from the very first one that started around 4 p.m., when I arrived at the hospital on that day, I was not in good shape with myself at all. The following mornings are always very, very tough. I throw up so much. I feel very discomfort. I feel very uncomfortable. Nothing feels good at all. Coupled with the pain that I have for inserting a new canal onto my neck, because for every time that I go home, the canal is taken off, and for every time I return back to the hospital, a new canal is inserted. And these things were, it creates a whole lot of discomfort. So the first set, and it goes just like that, the whole 5 days. And coming into my third day of this chemotherapy, after the one that I had on, coming to my fourth day, the one that I had in the morning around 5 a.m., I was totally uncomfortable. So I went to throw up again, and as usual, and after throwing up, I passed out in the bathroom, hitting my head badly, hitting the back of my head badly on the floor of the toilet. There is no way I could describe the effect of the heat, but one thing I know was also that after I found myself on the floor, I was conscious to realize where I was. So I stood up, I washed my face, and I got out of the toilet. But on getting out of the toilet, there were a whole lot of nurses by the door of the toilet waiting for me to come outside, because they absolutely hear the bang, and they knew that that was something weird. And when they saw me open the door, they grabbed me by the hand and got so good that they were actually waiting for me by the door. Because by the time I opened the door and stepped my foot out, I lost consciousness 100%. But they grabbed me. They already had a wheelchair around. They placed me on the wheelchair, and they rolled me down into my room and placed me on my bed. And a whole lot of tests was carried out. A whole lot of examinations again were carried out, and all sort of. And because of this situation, at this time, after my chemo, the 5-day chemo elapsed, I was not allowed to go home this very time. So I stayed in the hospital, and this time I stayed even in the hospital for more days, for more weeks than even my first stage treatment, than even the first 5 weeks, because when everything was supposed to start coming back up, the body was really not producing anything fast enough. And I was just there in the hospital with them for quite a while. And this made this third stage treatment a very, very difficult one for me. This whole treatment episode, it's just to give everybody listening to this episode a view of how things could be. Yes, everybody will go through their treatment, everybody will go through their phases in a different way, with a different perspective, in a different manner. But the truth is, the treatments are quite tough. The treatments are so difficult on the body. The treatment is not friendly to the body in any way. And this episode is just to encourage every one of us that things will happen, but no matter how long the days look during these treatments, there are brighter days ahead. I was diagnosed of leukemia on August 26, 2022. And by December 28, 2022, having completed 3 stages of treatment, each stages that lasted between 4 to 5 weeks, I was in Helsinki, the capital of Finland, in my room, ready to go through the final stage, which is the allogenic stem cell transplant. A stage also that equally lasted for 4 weeks, absolutely 4 weeks. And I want to encourage us during on this episode that healthy living is a must for everybody. Yes, there is a whole lot of reasons why we want to say that we cannot well, like I don't have the time. There are so many reasons not to live healthy. There are so many reasons not to be active. There are so many reasons because things happens with us on a daily basis. The world is moving at a very fast pace, but the importance of active living, the importance of healthy living outweighs whatever excuses that we could have in regards to ourselves. Because when things happens, when things fall on us, when our body requires some very, very strong treatment, like the chemo that I had during my leukemia journey, it is only when the body is in a good shape that the body can withstand this thing and not look broken. Because I benefited from this. I said it in the first episode. My first episode was about the diagnosis, basically, but I equally talked about my healthy lifestyle, my activity levels, my going to the gym, my eating lifestyle, my living clean. All of these played a huge role in helping my body to withstand all of these treatments. And when I moved down, when I now moved down to Helsinki to go through the final stage of my treatment, which is the allogenic stem cell transplant, my doctors told me that it could be about, I could be here about 6 weeks or more, considering how everything goes with myself, considering my recovery. But I was there exactly for 4 weeks. I was started the treatment on the 28th of December 2022, and I was discharged on the Monday, I think also 28th of January 2023. And it's so funny that going through allogenic stem cell transplant, the same procedure that I went through during my first stage treatment in Oulu was the same that I went through in Helsinki. The whole cells was killed, the whole cells was taken off with the effect of heavy chemotherapy as well. I had the same effect of throat, not being able to eat, not being able to swallow anything. And in the first 2 weeks, it absolutely looks like I was not going to leave this hospital in the next 2 weeks because the body was totally broken again. And I was having constant fever as well during this time. And but surprisingly, into the third week, the body starts recovering, and the body recovered so fast enough that by the end of the third week, I was not having any kind of an infusion anymore. All my medication was now through the mouth, no intravenous medications at all anymore. I was not having tablets only. And by the end of the fourth week, I was allowed to go home. And this whole treatment phase showed me once again that healthy lifestyle, activity lifestyle, it's a big plus. It's a big plus to ourselves. No excuses. Everything that we call as excuses, why we cannot go out to take a walk, why we cannot go out to go jogging, why we cannot ride our bicycle, why we cannot go to the gym, why we cannot eat healthy. Every excuses that comes around all of these things, the benefit of doing them outweighs all of these excuses. And I will want to encourage every one of us to see this episode as a platform to live healthy, to live life to the fullest, knowing fully well that that is the best that we can give ourselves. And this is where I will be rounding up with the treatment with this second episode, which I've titled the treatment today. And just like my first episode, there are two takeaways that I want to also encourage every one of us here. The first takeaway here is we should have faith in God. God is real. He showed up for me during this whole scenario. There were a whole lot of things, there were a whole lot that happened that I cannot put in words in this episode. But I want to tell everyone listening to this that most of the result most of the things that happen in the course of my treatment, they are all signs of miracles. And without God, I don't know what could have been happening today. And the second takeaway is, let's remember to live healthy. Let's remember to be very active. All the excuses that we have, all the excuses that we give, all the excuses that we portray not to be active or not to live healthy, the benefit of living healthy, the benefit of living active outweighs all of these excuses. And this is where I'm going to wrap it up on today's episode of Living Life Podcast. I hope you enjoy what you've heard from me today. And I really wish every one of us a very wonderful week. I wish every one of us a very wonderful time. I wish every one of us a very wonderful health. And we will keep living in health and keep excelling in all that we do. Have a wonderful day and see you on the next episode. Bye.